as you're going through that, I was thinking of some of the questions students in Cornell are asking about sustainability, and one of the top of the mind questions is what is sustainability? And you so nicely link people, consumers, the planet, if you want. The second thing, which is the waste reduction and the focus on quality of the product at the same time, and of course the profitability, because as you mentioned, if you throw away 200% more than
Exactly.
you need to because of contamination in your example, then that hits directly the bottom line, the profitability, the investors' risk. We don't talk enough about the risk in the investment part of the supply chain and in the financial risk. So you link it so nicely. It's a very good example. Thank you.
Right. And it has like a lot of operational gains. Just I mean, like the simplest thing, right? Like it's the most basic thing that we have seen supply chain starts with is the like your operation capital, right? Like the first thing that this visibility will help you to do is figure out the right level of inventory in your system, right?
Absolutely.
And that is straightforward, like an advantage of like certain percentage, like hey, you don't need this much inventory because this is what you're selling, and this is what is in the pipeline, and this is what is like in on in routes to different places, and all of those things will like straight away reduce your operational capital requirement, which is in fact like that in itself is a big bonus. And like that in itself like helps a lot of these companies to adopt this, even though it is a regulation is the big driver, but even like this in itself helps them to see the value add that these changes can bring.
And by the way, just reading the news this morning, eggs are a major factor in the inflation blip in the US. Apparently, they went up by over 50% year over year and created a consumers blip. So it's so the right time to talk about it. It's so good time to talk about, and I should confess that I haven't thought of eggs as being as important in the inflation and in the consumers. They were always there when you
They're
don't
always there,
care much.
right? Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, I have nothing personal against eggs or anything like that, but like I've also seen like, the prices going up, right? Like when I came to US in 2018 or I think, yeah, that thereabouts, right? Uh, and this is like, very like anecdotal, so like take it with a pinch of salt, right? But it used to be like a $2 for a dozen eggs, brown eggs that I consume usually. Not even $2. I think 196 or something, right? So less than $2. And now if you go to like even like Aldi or Walmart, which are basically like often the like the lowest price in the market, like their prices are like $6 and above for brown eggs for a dozen, right? So like you see like three times the price increase within 7 years of my existence within US. So I mean, like people are not wrong about complaining about that price going up in X. So like yeah, it impacts everybody, right? So inflation definitely, like yeah, it's a big thing for these
You're
industries.
reminding me about the sort of a half joke, half reality indicator used by the economist, which is the Big Mac indicator, trying to get one product that is standardized across the world. We should suggest to them to replace it with eggs.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that is so true. That is so true. Yeah, and yeah, like it's like we are taking it lightly, but it is definitely like a big thing across US and big thing for inflation, and it is the reality. So
And it's really a complete model of sustainability as well, because it links agriculture with transportation, with distribution, with economics of that, and of course risks, healthcare as well, right? The cost of misreporting is also probably high in case that
absolutely.
happens. Well, really enjoying the conversation, but I would like to move to a slightly different topic, also related to today's. But how can we future-proof the supply chains? We talked about automation. We didn't talk really about reshoring, and I'm not sure if we continue with eggs. I think eggs are produced locally more than coming from far away. And how do we link it to sustainability? So really shifting a bit the discussion about future-proofing the supply chain, we saw these moving pieces, regulations changing, not only the regulatory frameworks, the legal frameworks as well. The advance of AI, which you so well mentioned at the beginning, and of course the people changes with respect to sustainability. So let's bring the automation and reshoring factors together.
No, absolutely, yeah, and like I'll go back to my like most used framework. I would say like people, processes, and technology. Starting with like people, right? Like when you talk about future proofing your supply chain, right? Like one, as you are seeing with the with the new technologies coming up, right? Like AI and all of those like IoTs and blockchain. I know like they have been around, but like the adoption is now like probably gaining more strength than before, right? So with the adoption of these technology, I would say the first thing that you would need is like the people within supply chain or like your teams and things like that. You would have to think how you're investing on these people to not just have the supply chain skills but also the technology skill to an extent to adopt these new technology and then take it, move it forward, right? I don't think just an AI engineer would ever be able to build something which is making a huge difference in an operations field or in a procurement field, right? You would always need to have that functional skill, right? And so there there are possibility that these two people would come together, but then there is also when you're trying to future proof your supply chain, you would have to have people who can do both, who can do a little bit of both, and then from there on if you have an expert on like a tech side or great coder or something, like then you provide them knowledge about supply chain, and then if you have a supply chain person, you provide them knowledge about AI. Maybe it would be just functional level, they don't have to code and things like that, but I think that would be on the people side. Like you will have to one like cross train people and just upgrade the skills of the people on both technology side as well as the supply chain side, right? And that's how you try to stay ahead of the curve, at least on the people side. In terms of like processes and things like that, right? I think your processes would change a whole lot now. Just I took an example of like your procurement process. Earlier it used to be a procurement manager or a buyer is typing the RFP or like using a template and making it ready takes a week, and then send it out to supplier and bring it in, the responses take time to evaluate them. Now you have technology in place which would do a lot of these, so you need to work with the technology, so your processes will change. Like you are not drafting something from the scratch, or you're not bringing in new things in the system on your own. You have like a library of tools that can help you do all of these, right? So one, you have to have these kind of changes to your process that helps you one implement these new technology and adopt this new technology, also leverage the skills that you have given to your people on both technology and the operation side, right? So that would be another thing. And then on the technology side, of course, like the adoption of this, right? Like it's not that it's available, let's just use it, right? It costs money, it's not easy, it's very expensive as well, but you still have to start somewhere, because the operations field is not going to be the same in next 10 to 15 years what it used to be last 5 to 10 years, right? You have seen that change with COVID and everything, but now we are seeing another major revolution with this invent of AI and like proliferation of AI into everything. So definitely you will have to start thinking about how you, like, what is the base use case that you can start with, how you can like mature in the technology, like, what use cases make sense for you, right? You don't have to adopt everything that is out there, right? Like maybe you are an operations firm, you want to make sure that your data that you are generating through the operations is used somehow, like, to improve the quality of the product or to just optimize the production and things like that, right? You just have to think through one use case at a time and, like, start adopting it, right? And I think it's a long journey, and we are not thinking like, everything will be done within a year or so. So definitely there is a learning curve as well to this, but the sooner people start, the sooner companies start and realize that they will have to adapt at some point in time and like adopt these technologies, they can start thinking about which one to start and where to begin and things like that, right? So I think that would be few things. Obviously we talk about, like, nearshoring and offshore, like, how do you bring in all of the, like, the geopolitics and things like that in place as well. And that's your strategy level, which goes above all of these three things that I just talked about, right? So think about, like, how your supply chains are like currently distributed, and like where do you see the risk, right? And again, you can use your AI and the technology that you put that you implement to identify a lot of these things. You will have to have right questions to ask to help solve the problem, right? And that is where, like, you can use the technology. But I think again, like, I go back to the tariffs discussion a whole lot. Like, nobody knows what will happen to the tariffs, right? Like, think about if you are a retailer or a manufacturer, right? You think like, oh no, just because of tariff now I'll have to rethink my entire supply chain. What are the options? Should I, like, one response could be I'll just put my increase in the I'll increase my price, so consumers will pay for this, right? But you also have a competitor who is thinking other way around, like, no, I'll absorb this cost. I'll try to make my supply chain more optimized and reduce the cost there and absorb this tariffs cost, right? So there's also this game theory in place, like who would take what action, and, like, that would determine like where you go from here, right? So it's a big decision. The other option that they might take is, like, I'll bring in my manufacturing into, like, within US, right? And we talk about that, like, nearshoring. Now it's not even nearshoring, it's just localization. the the pros to that is, like, great, like now you'll avoid tariff, which is like, if you're coming from like maybe like Canada or Mexico, it's 25%. But then, like, there's a huge investment to be made to have that. There is a ramp up time to, like, it's not like the factory is going to be installed like copy paste from Mexico to here like within a couple of days. So all of those decisions, and then you don't know whether this tariffs would stay for just next 4 years or it's a long term thing, and you made all the investment to bring everything inside, and, like, within a year or so you start your new factory within US, and then, like, within 3 years the tariffs are gone. So now you are, like, have this huge capex, which is making your overall operations look super ridiculous and, like, super expensive, and you're not even competitive in the market, and that could, like, almost kill your company, right? So you have to think through all of these things when you're thinking about, like, future proofing your supply chain for a long term, and, like, what makes sense for one company would probably not make sense for the other one. And that is where the I think the problem solving and all of those things comes in place. Like, how do you react to this problem considering your situation, the market situation, and your competitor, like what your competitors are doing, right? And also, to an extent, it will go to the kind of product that you are selling, right? So also, like, that would play a part in this. So lot to things, lot of moving parts, lot in the flux as well. uh I can say one thing, like, what many companies and, like, a lot of the leaders in supply chain are worried about is not the tariffs, not the like, the regulations, but more the unpredictability of it. And that is what probably is giving a bigger headache right now to people in supply chain than anything else.
Yeah, for latter world of risk, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And no, then thank you. For me, you painted actually a positive picture, and I'll give you my my sort of approach, how I look at it as being positive. And this is really from a perspective of sustainability, because everything you said eventually leads to collecting more data, more real-time data, more accurate data, which eventually it will roll in sustainability decisions, regardless if the regulations are moving in, swinging in one way or the other. You mentioned the function of efficiency, and oh, I'll be amazed if any CEO will come and say, "No, we try to be inefficient." They are, but it's not for public
Yeah.
consumption.
No, I mean, I see the silver lining here with all of these changes coming, right? And I mean, it's a big plus overall, I would say, right? Particularly if you're looking at it from sustainability point of view, all of these data, right? Like 5 years down the line, or I mean, maybe I'm very much optimistic, but like few years down the line, you would have all this data, and you would realize, like, oh, now like making my operation sustainable is a lot easier than it was before. It was just that I wasn't thinking about this in past few years, but now I have all this data and I have the visibility into my suppliers. I have, like, a lot of things that I need. So the foundation would have been built to make like sustainability basically an embedded function within supply chain. Like it won't be like a sustainability as a separate function. Like, everything is within embedded within supply chain, and it would just be like a norm rather than like, oh, sustainability, I need to do something about this, I need to report this to my like government and things like that. This would just become a norm, and that's how I see, like, in long term,
And
irrespective of, like, the political scenarios and things like that, it would probably be like more of an embedded function within supply chain.
exactly, and will help to make better informed decisions. Uh, as you said, using AI, as AI will also progress in the few years, will be probably better at making, helping more and more the humans to make good decisions. So sustainability, as you said, will become an embedded function, and it will be connected. It has to be connected to reliance, to reliability, to resilience. Has to be connected also to savings, right? Most
Absolutely.
companies try to manage profitability, as you mentioned, even with context of reshoring or nearshoring or localization. All this go back to profit and loss somewhere in the finance.
Absolutely. And like, I mean, like companies would soon realize, right? Like a lot of these initiatives pay for themselves within a few years. Some may take longer than others, but like still there are like your your bottom line is getting impacted in a positive manner in a longer run. That's how I see all of these changes impacting the overall company's
And
operation.
and because of my experience in marketing, and you mentioned actually companies will try to differentiate. So as they differentiate, they'll probably try to move more towards sustainable products, like usually, for instance, concrete or steel or aluminum. They are very high, steel in particular, and concrete or cement, producing a lot of carbon footprint. So they'll try to differentiate and come up with products that are cheaper and much more environmentally friendly,
Friendly.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, well, we say time goes faster when you have fun. But I still have one topic I would like to address before the end of this conversation. I hope to have to host you back soon. What's your advice? And you, by the way, mentioned a little bit for sustainability students, young professionals, and I'll use the also the question to point to training and certification of ISCEA, which you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation.
So, I mean, in terms of like students or like early professionals within supply chain, right? I would definitely say like what we are seeing is like people companies are looking for people, one who has supply chain understanding, right? If you're an early professional or a student, like you would definitely like people are looking for like educational or academic understanding of supply chain and operations topics and things like that, right? But now I think data and technology goes hand in hand, right? So like if you can combine two of these three things, let's say you are efficient in supply chain, maybe like demand planning process or just like operations, manufacturing operations and things like that, but along with that you are really good at data analytics, like data mining, and like good with like just like running queries on SQL and things like that. I think that goes a really long way, because early in your career, right, like you are probably used as an analyst irrespective of your title. Like you are used as somebody who can like help with gaining insights out of data, or like understanding the process and like process mapping and value stream mapping and things like that, right? And if you're able to bring in the data aspect or the technology aspect, let's say you're really good with AI, and like you can use AI in different ways and forms to help you with the functional aspect of supply chain, that could go a really long way. That could really accelerate your career in the field, right? So definitely I would say that like this is, right now we are at that stage where it is so easy to get educated on things, right? Like you have free educations, you have like certification courses like what ICA is doing, you have like a lot of different webinars and seminars going on particular topic. Like I know ICA does a lot of these, and like a lot of other organizations do as well. It becomes easier, it is getting more and more easier to get education, right? You don't have to show that like you are an expert in that, but you it goes a long way that you understand stuff, or you are able to use it in a way that is helpful to your organization or to yourself in your day-to-day work, right? I'd give an example. When I started my career, right, like Excel and VBA, Visual Basic within Excel, was one of the big things. Like even like VLOOKUP and things, which still is very useful, right? Like people still ask for like, do you know how to do VLOOKUP and things like that? But at that time, it was like kind of like a big deal for me. Like we used to work a whole lot on Excel, like preparing those design specs and like data sheets for technology products, for like sensors and things like that. And if you can do VLOOKUP, if you can do like VBA and things like that, it would one like speed up a lot of these things, right? VBA was basically sort of like some sort of automation tool within Excel. Now like you have a lot of different tools, but so not many people use it. But still, like at that time, like VBA, if you know that, it would help me like do 120 pages data sheet into like 10 minutes or 20 minutes once I write the like VBA code and stuff like that, right? And that helps me like save some time and do some of the other learning stuff that I want to do, right? Like let's say I want to pick up a new project, or I want to help with somebody else on a new project that gives me additional learning. I think that was like, I would say like that was a game changer for me when I started learning VBA, and like helped me like save time to do other stuff, to like expand my horizon, to like try out different things. And same goes with currently now, like AI is that technology, or like data analytics is that technology. Like if you do one of those things, it would help you save time on your day-to-day things. It also provides your company the efficiency, that the productivity increases of that person, right? And then it gives you an opportunity to go and learn new things within supply chain outside of it, irrespective, right? Or just a new technology that you want. And I think that's a win-win for everybody.
I would, add sort of my advice. Whatever you learn, it helps you. You don't know when.
Exactly.
And they
Absolutely.
brought a perfect example of how, using something that is right now an old technology, but it was new when you started to learn, helps you to understand or better use AI, because now you have a view of how to use technology to get better, faster, quicker results, and help you to create better products or better services or better insights, whatever you're working
Absolutely.
on.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for coming, and just wanted to thank you, Mihir, for taking the time to visit with us today. And for our audience, please make sure to tune in every week for a new episode of AKFI Actionable ESG Talk Series. You'll gain, as you gain today, new perspectives on how to mitigate risks and create value by integrating ESG, sustainability, AI, and digital transformation. Until next week, goodbye from Manuel.
Thank you, Manuel.